Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays, hosted by someone's favorite film buff, Nathan. I love movies and I want to share that with you. From old originals to cult classics and foreign favorites, along with straight up drivel, WWW is your place for all things movies. Stick around and we'll leave you with a movie to watch over the weekend with your family or that special someone. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
88.1 The Burg, your Music Central. My name is Nathan. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. So, today is a very special kind of Wednesday because it's a holiday, but not the kind that we get the day off from school. But today is in fact a holiday. It is known as Valentine's Day. Notoriously, the Valentine's Day is the holiday where people spend their time with their loved ones, or with a girlfriend, or a boyfriend, or a friend, or a relative. I already said that one. I personally do not like Valentine's Day all that much because for those of you who are like me and aren't dating anyone, it's kind of just like, well, what am I supposed to do? Sit around doing nothing all day? Yeah, I'm just going to do that. But I kind of wanted to revamp my take on Valentine's Day this year. I decided to be more positive about things. And so I decided I could either lean into the fact that this is Valentine's Day and I could easily talk about romance movies, or I could pretend it didn't exist. Which one is more positive? Leaning into it and actually reviewing some romance movies. So we're going to go with that. Tonight, I'm going to talk about 3 romance movies that I really enjoyed because they're not really just romance movies. That is one of the things I personally really like about a movie, is that it can be multiple things. And so we are going to take a look at The Princess Bride from 1987, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004, and True Romance from 1993. We're jumping back, then forward, then back again, and we're going to cover a variety of different genres, but don't you worry, all of these are romantic in their own way, and so they all count for a Valentine's Day review. I'm not going to put effort into this by watching a Hallmark movie. You can't make me. Stick around for after the break, where we'll take a jump into The Princess Bride. 88.1 The Burg, your Music Central. My name is Nathan. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our first movie on the watch list tonight, we are going to be taking a look at The Princess Bride from 1987, available on Disney+. So, I think I should really address the elephant in the room before I jump into actually reviewing the movie itself, and that is that The Princess Bride is an undeniable classic of cinema. It is an unescapable cultural touchstone. It has been quoted so many times. I've heard this movie quoted more times than I think any other movie ever. You could name like 3 of them right off the top of my head. Like, watch me. Inconceivable. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepared to blah, 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 blah. And anybody got a peanut? Okay? That took me like 5 seconds. I can name many quotes from this movie. As You Wish. How did I forget about As You Wish? Anyway, as you could see, it is like quotable to Detroit and back. I don't know why I said Detroit, but follow me here. This movie is just so very popular for a very good reason, because it's a very sweet story. It's a very family-friendly story. It is an incredibly just iconic masterpiece. And I think there are certain aspects of it that work very well that I don't see people championing enough about it. So allow me to take the time to kind of explain some things that I really like about it from a filmmaking perspective, rather than from its like, oh, this is the quote from it and that's very good. That's the only great thing about it, is that you can quote it endlessly. So to kind of get people up to speed who have been living under a rock and haven't ever seen the movie or have no idea what it's about, The Princess Bride follows a girl by the name of Buttercup who falls in love with a man by the name of Wesley. The two of them are very well, they're together, but he's poor, she's not, and it's kind of this whole situation. And then he goes off on a boat and gets sunk, and he's basically assumed to be dead. And then she's going to get married off to this rich king, and whoa, who's this crazy man wearing a weird ninja-looking mask? I swear, I always thought it looked like a ninja mask. Who's this ninja mask guy? Why, it's Wesley. He became a pirate king, and he's come back to reclaim his love, Buttercup. And you realize how insane this story sounds when you say it out loud and describe it on paper, right? Like a pirate king in like a medieval fantasy setting, and he looks like a ninja. Like, they were on something when they were making this movie. I honestly got to admit, it feels like this shouldn't have worked at all. And one thing that shouldn't have worked at all with this movie is the way it's told, because everything I just described is pitched to you like a young boy who is sick and staying home from school has his grandpa come over to his house and read all of what I just said in a storybook to his grandson. That is how they set up the movie. That should not have worked at all. There are so many things about this movie that shouldn't have worked. And it works so incredibly well. All of it blends together into an amazing movie that it grabs a hold of your heart and never lets go for its entire runtime. I can only think of maybe one scene that maybe lost me for a second there, and even then it's just like, what scene was it? I don't think it was significant enough. It wasn't significant enough of a blunder for me to remember it, to even give it the time of day. That's how good this movie is and how well it manages to pull off all of those elements. I think the idea of it just being a grandpa telling a sweet little story to his grandson is an incredibly good narrative device, and it frames the context of the story so incredibly well, because sure, you all know that it's just one big storybook, but you actually care about the characters. This could have fallen flat on its face, I hope you understand, and it didn't. It jumped through the roof is what it did. I will say that one of my favorite aspects of it as well is that it is a very funny movie. As I said, anybody got a peanut? One of my favorite quotes from the movie. In terms of comedy value, my favorite quote would actually, we'll get into what my favorite quote is later, but I think Inconceivable and Anybody Got a Peanut and just the whole thing can be very entertaining to watch from a purely comedic standpoint. But from a dramatic and from a romantic standpoint, it also holds its own perfectly. Every action in this movie is in interest of keeping Buttercup and Wesley's relationship together. They're trying to get back to each other. That is the goal of the movie. And everything they do follows that goal. No matter what obstacle gets in their way, they are trying to reunite with each other. That, to me, is how you do a romance movie, because there is so much other stuff, including big giant men. When I say giant men, I just mean Andre the Giant is in the movie, and he's called Andre the Giant, so he is a giant man. And just all of the little subplot things where they're walking through different swamps. They're basically trying to get out of dangerous situations while trying to outrun the king who's trying to marry Buttercup, and always getting into the next wild scenario. They are trying to reunite with each other. They're trying to stay together. They're trying to prove that their love can endure to themselves and to each other. That's how you make a movie, guys. That's how you, that's a message there. That's how you engross the audience. That's how you make me happy. Why do movies not do this? No, movies do tend to do this. I think that this movie's biggest advantage, aside from the core plot line, is that they also put effort into the side characters. And when I say side characters, I'll be completely honest. Andre the Giant, wonderful. Wallace Shawn playing the little smart guy, absolutely amazing. Six-Fingered King, great. He's there. All of the other side characters are good in their own way, especially the guy who's there for the wedding of Buttercup and the king, and he just goes off. His lisp or some speech impediment, you can't be making fun of people with speech impediments with that. You are just trying to be impressive at that point. But Inigo Montoya is by far my number one favorite side character of all time. His arc of going from a man with no purpose in life to finally being able to face down the man who killed his father. And I know I don't talk about spoilers, but this is a movie that you have to have seen before. There's no way you don't know about this. Inigo Montoya's face down with the Six-Fingered King is hands down one of my favorite arcs for any side character to go through. He manages to turn it all around, all while simply saying, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." That is my favorite quote from the movie. I'm getting goosebumps just saying it out loud. I hope you understand. I can't stop shivering. That's such a good line. That's such a wonderful line. And it's like 4 sentences, but it counts as one line. It's an iconic quote. I love it so much. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Princess Bride, honestly. Well, okay. All being a relative term. All I can say about it tonight. But highly recommend Princess Bride. If you've never seen it before, you are genuinely living under a rock. So, stick around for after the break, where we'll jump into Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. 88.1 The Burg, you're at Music Central. My name is Nathan. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our second movie on the watch list tonight, we are going to take a look at Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004. Available on Hulu with a premium thing. I don't really know how Hulu really works, but it's on Hulu. So this movie, I'm going to just give it the only criticism right now that the title is a bit too long, because I'm just going to shorten this down to Eternal Sunshine. We'll be here all night if I just keep saying the entire title every single time I want to talk about it. It's pretty much the longest name I think I've ever heard, aside from Doctor Strangelove or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. That movie, you guys know what that movie is? I will say as well, I also used to always get this movie mixed up with Requiem for a Dream. I just got it mixed up because their names are both kind of cumbersome. Like Requiem for a Dream kind of rhymes, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, like it's just so of the, and then for a, and it's like, if you've got like 2 big concept words in between an of the or for a, it's just like, I'm going to get them mixed up eventually, probably. I don't know. It's not a very good excuse, but it's just there. It's a cumbersome name. So let's just jump into what this movie's actually about. Eternal Sunshine is a romance movie, but it's also part sci-fi and part psychological thriller that it's so far removed from just a traditional romance movie that it feels like an insult calling it that. This movie follows a man by the name of Joel, played by Jim Carrey, and his ex-girlfriend, played by Kate Winslet, and I'm going to look up her name right now because I want to make sure to remember it. I think it's Ellie, and I'm going to be proven horribly wrong when it turns out to not be that as her name. It is Clementine. Her name is Clementine. So Joel and Clementine, played by Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet, have broken up. And Jim Carrey, or Joel, decides to go in and get this weird scientific surgery done to his brain where basically all memories of Clementine are erased from his mind forever. So he doesn't ever have to think about her. And that's one way of getting revenge on your ex. I'll give him that much. So throughout the process of getting his mind erased, he begins to look back on his memories with her and realize, wait, I don't want to forget her. I know we broke up, but these were good memories. I don't want to lose them. And all of it is based around this idea that his mind is being erased as he's figuring this out and basically has to fight it in order to keep those memories on or inside his head. Now, from the way I'm describing it and from watching it myself, I can guarantee you this movie is a mind bender. It'll get there and you'll go, what's going on? I'm very confused. At first, you'll get there at first, because one of my highest praises for this movie is that aside from all the logistics of how any of this works, it's really more focused on showing you rather than telling you how it's going to work. And when you see it in practice, it honestly makes a lot more sense. And they don't spend any amount of time really going into the logistics of like, here's what we're doing with the scientific part of it. Maybe they kind of babble about it here and there, but they don't really like emphasize it enough to the point where it's like, this is really just an odyssey through Joel's memories. That's all this is. So then you go, okay, I don't really need to worry about how this technology works. I just need to kind of follow along with, okay, we're in his memories and we're kind of working backwards to when they broke up, to when they first met up. Now we're just going to kind of work our way back here and there. What was the story between them? How'd they get together? What are they doing? What were they doing at this point in time? What were they doing at that point in time? And all of those moments are absolutely incredible. They are such a sweet, there's a very sweet romance story buried not so deep under the surface at all. This is an absolutely classic of the romance genre. And it works because it's such a good mishmash. Like Princess Bride, I would have hated it if it was just a romance movie about Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet being broken up, and then it shows their relationship in reverse, because I already know they're gonna break up. But this is like this weird sci-fi concept. I can distract myself, and then I can worry about what happens at the end. Oh no, are they gonna remember? What if they remember? Are they gonna get back together? Who knows? There's a chance that they could get back together because maybe they remember that this weird process just took place. They really just wanted to be petty. Maybe they all realize when looking back on their memories that they actually wanted this like relationship to go on. What's going on here? There's a chance. There is a chance with this setup. And that, to me, makes it all the more worth it. And I should say, there is another significant aspect of why this movie works in the first place. And that is the fact that you've probably noticed, I said Jim Carrey plays the main character, Joel. And you're probably going, Jim Carrey. Yeah, right. The guy who played the live-action Grinch and The Mask is able to pull off a genuine romantic role. I'll eat my hat if that's true, man. Don't worry. He pulls it off very well. And Kate Winslet, it's Kate Winslet. She's amazing, obviously. She's incredible. And I only say this is obvious because she was in Titanic. You can't necessarily receive that amount of acclaim if you weren't good in one of the highest grossing movies like ever. Like, come on. She probably earned that role for a reason. But in Eternal Sunshine, wonderful performance. Jim Carrey's performance in this movie, I honestly think Jim Carrey is a great dramatic actor. He's a lot like Adam Sandler in that he's kind of known for not being serious at all, but when he takes it seriously, he can be very good. And I think this is Jim Carrey's like best role aside from The Truman Show. I think The Truman Show is his best performance. This is like the second best I've seen. And it's very ironic to me that this movie, all about memory, is a movie I have trouble remembering. But we'll jump into that on What to Watch Weekends. So stick around for after the break, where we jump into True Romance. Stick around for that. 88.1 The Burg, here at Music Central. My name is Nathan. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our third and final movie on the watch list tonight, we are going to take a look at True Romance from 1993, available to rent on all the conventional renting platforms on the internet. Or not all of them, but a couple of them. The big ones like Amazon and YouTube and Vudu. So, this movie, True Romance, I don't know how many people have heard of this one. It's a bit of a cult classic. I personally wanted to watch this movie because the premise alone is bonkers. So, see if you can follow me here for a second. Imagine a movie where an Elvis fan who works at a comic book shop, so basically a loser, right, gets a call girl for the night, and after the fact, they fall in love with each other. He goes and kills her handler and gets his suitcase full of white powder, and they run off to LA so they can sell it to a movie executive. That is the plot of True Romance. I did not make up a single bit of that. I simply avoided saying some of the more overt words that they actually get involved with, but all of that is the basic premise of the movie. and it works as a romance movie. How, you may ask? Very good question. Well, let's dive into the first part, which is that I personally really like a movie that is just insane. As I very poignantly put it with Schizopolis, directed by Steven Soderbergh, I like movies where it's just like, what were you thinking when you made this? And yet I'm just laughing. I'm just laughing while asking that question. And True Romance doesn't get to that level of absurdity, but it definitely has its moments where you're going, okay, how did they manage to come up with all this crazy nonsense and make it fit together into anything coherent at all? And part of the reason is because it's not an independent movie like Schizopolis, where they were just like, okay, throw everything at the wall. But it manages to kind of walk the line between very serious crime drama that absolutely works when it should, and very over-the-top zany romance movie that shouldn't have worked, but does. So keep that in mind. This movie is also, as I said, partly an actual, like, a crime movie. They do steal stuff. He does go and kill a guy. And it very much has the balance of, here's some very funny moments, some genuinely good comedic moments, and then here's some actually, like, very tense and gripping crime drama moments that are, like, almost sometimes very intense to watch on screen. And it's like, okay, here's the reason for that. It's not called a comedy movie. It is, at its core, a crime romance movie. It doesn't really have comedy in that title. It just has its comedic moments. It's really just a crime drama with a big romantic, like, blanket over the whole thing. And that, to me, is interesting because I feel like it could have worked as a more of a rom-com, honestly. From concept alone, it should have worked as just a rom-com. And yet they did manage to pull off a legitimately thrilling drama. So I guess it's getting 3 points instead of 2. Let's put it that way. And I don't mean out of any sort of number scheme. I just mean, like, if it had been a romantic comedy movie, it would have gotten like, oh, that's 2 things you guys did perfectly good. Now it's like, okay, you've got some very funny moments and an actually compelling drama with, like, this weird crime overlord thing. And now there's this romance. Okay, 3 things you got right. So keep that in mind. As I said, it is also very much a crime drama, so it's also incredibly violent. Part of the reason for that is that it was written by Quentin Tarantino, who is known for notoriously being quite violent. Although I should mention that it wasn't directed by Quentin Tarantino. Funnily enough, it's directed by Tony Scott, the guy who directed Top Gun. That's an interesting sort of turnover there, but either way, this movie honestly should not have worked at all, and it works perfectly. And as I've kept saying, oh, it's such a good, like, crime drama and stuff like that, and you're like, it's called True Romance. It's Valentine's Day. Where's the romantic part? Give me the romantic part. You're holding out on me. And I'll tell you right now, part of the reason this movie works at all is because of the 2 leads of this movie. The nerd who loves Elvis and quite literally sees hallucinations of him, and his crazy call girl who falls in love with him after they spend the night together. They are played by Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette. They have such a good chemistry together that the way I describe their dynamic in this movie, their characters have the feel of, we're some 21-year-olds who just got married and were going on a honeymoon. Quite literally. It is basically that. And then they throw in the idea of, you are a person who came along in my life when I had no purpose at all, and you give me something to fight for, something to live for, something to die for. And that, to me, being so genuine in that idea in a crime movie, that is the entire reason this doesn't fall apart and collapse in on itself. There is never a moment. And I was like, I'm sure this is going to happen. I would hate if this actually happened, but I'm sure there's going to be some cheesy nonsense about this that like, oh no, she goes for another guy. Oh no, they're going to break up. Oh no, this is going to fall apart. This weirdly crazy, wholesome romance is going to fall in on itself and it's not going to work anymore. And they're going to end up separated and never together again. No. What are you, crazy? That's not how this movie works. They just go through it in the first 30 minutes and then they go off and they're like, oh, we're just going to be together for the end of time. Okay, cool for me. I don't have to be sad. Thank you. Thank you very much. Round of applause. 15 Oscars. I don't know. No, I would highly recommend True Romance, although it does come with the kind of quality of, oh, it is quite violent. It is a crime movie and it's got a lot of other stuff going on besides the romance, but like, man, I didn't expect it to work as well as it did. I was hoping it'd work very well. It worked amazing is what happened. So that wraps up our show tonight. I would like to say that the weekend watch or the high recommendation is obviously Princess Bride, although unlike other nights where there's maybe one that I don't like too much, tonight really is just one where I was reviewing 3 movies I absolutely adored. So thank you for sticking around for that.